quiet after the storm. Open quote, the blood has dried, the flames have faded, but the village has not forgotten. The Uchiha massacre is behind them, and now in the silence that follows, eyes turn inward. Who can be trusted? What really happened that night, and what secrets still lie beneath the surface? Sakura walks forward, not as a survivor, but as a strategist. This is the calm before the next storm, and every bond she builds now must be chosen with care. Youth voice, open quote. Welcome back to Riow Stories. In episode 9, we enter the rebuilding arc. But don't be fooled, this quiet is full of whispers. If you've been enjoying the story, please like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Let's begin episode 9 of The Silent Bond, Reincarnated as Sakura Haruno. Chapter 30, A New Path Forward. The sun hung low over Konoha as Jiraiya made his way toward the Hokage's office. His return to the village after months of traveling felt like stepping into a different world. The usual liveliness of the streets was still present, but there was an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there before. Whispers followed him as he walked, murmurs of strange events and ominous figures. Jiraiya's mind was already buzzing with questions. He had heard snippets of rumors, an enigmatic geisha, a masked woman, the reappearance of a man who had somehow eluded death, but now it was time to get the full story. As he arrived at the Hokage's tower, he knew this was more than just a casual investigation. The village was on edge. Jiraiya, Hiruzen Sarutobi greeted him with a measured smile. It's been too long. The Seinen nodded, his expression serious. Too long indeed. I hear you've had some trouble since I've been away. You called me back to look into it? The third Hokage gestured for Jiraiya to take a seat. We have a situation that's becoming more complex than we initially thought. There are 3 figures we need to discuss. Yuki Uzumaki, a geisha with remarkable chakra control and a connection to the Uzumaki clan. A masked woman known as Rin, who intervened in key moments in the Uchiha conflict. And finally a masked man, the same one believed to have caused the Nine Tails attack. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed at the mention of the masked man. So that's confirmed? The one who took down Minato? Hiruzen nodded grimly. We believe so. He's also tied to Yuki and this Rin in some way, though we're still piecing it together. Jiraiya leaned back, brows furrowed. Yuki Uzumaki? I didn't think any of the clan had survived after the village was destroyed. And Rin? You mean Rin Nohara? The Hokage's eyes sharpened at the name. That's what Kakashi believes. She appeared during the Uchiha incident, masked, but he recognized her chakra. He even said her name aloud during the confrontation. Jiraiya's lips pressed into a thin line. Minato always said those 3 had a bond that went deeper than most. If it really is Rin Nohara, then her return isn't just suspicious, it's explosive. She died in the war, didn't she? The Hokage cut in gently. We can't confirm anything yet. She vanished alongside the masked man at the end of the battle. Whether she was taken or escaped, we don't know. It's unclear if she's truly Rin Nohara or simply someone using her name and face. We need answers, and quickly. The village is already on edge, and tensions with the Uchiha are still high, even if they've lessened after recent events. Hiruzen's expression turned thoughtful. Yuki's trail is cold, but her presence lingers in the geisha quarters. Rin, however, she's become a ghost. Focus on her first. Jiraiya nodded. All right, I'll start with Rin. If there's any truth to this, if it's really her, I'll find it. Jiraiya rose to his feet, determination flashing in his eyes. I'll let you know what I find. Later that day, outside the Uchiha district, Itachi sat silently on the edge of the training grounds, the weight of his thoughts nearly unbearable. His father's words echoed in his mind from earlier that day. You're asking me to trust the village after everything? Why should I believe they'll keep their word? Itachi had knelt before his father, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Father, the village has revealed the truth about the Nine Tails attack. They know the Uchiha had no part in it. This is our chance. If we move forward with rebellion, it will only lead to the destruction of our clan. I don't want Sasuke to grow up without a family. We have to take this opportunity to rebuild trust. There had been a long, tense silence, Fugaku's face unreadable. Then finally, very well, Itachi. I will consider your words, but if the village betrays us again, I won't hesitate. Now as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Itachi felt a small sense of relief. His father wasn't fully on board yet, but it was a start. This might be the only chance the Uchiha had to avoid disaster, and Itachi couldn't afford to fail. Elsewhere, Sakura kept to the shadows. She watched Jiraiya from a rooftop, her mind already spinning with strategies to protect the fragile web of illusions she had spun. If he started digging into Rin's identity, she needed to stay ahead of him. He believed Rin had been taken by the masked man during the chaos, and that gave her precious time. The Rin clone had served its purpose. Now she needed more than an illusion. Rin had to become a myth, fleshed out, grounded in memory, cloaked in sacrifice. If Kakashi was going to keep believing, and if Jiraiya was going to follow her trail, then Rin needed to feel undeniably real. She unsealed a small scroll and unfurled it carefully. Tucked inside were fragments, notes, scribbles, and hearsay she had collected over years. Snippets about Rin Nohara's past, her training under Minato, her bond with Obito and Kakashi. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start building something deeper. But it wouldn't be enough forever. She needed more. She needed truth, or at least something that looked like it. She needed sacrifices. Her fingers tensed. Not yet, but soon. And Jiraiya? He would be the first to chase her shadow. At the Hokage's office, Kakashi stood in front of the third Hokage once more. His voice was steady, but the lines around his eyes were deeper, his shoulders heavier. Yuki Uzumaki. She accused the village of abandoning her people when the Uzumaki clan was destroyed. She said history would repeat itself unless we acted. The Hokage listened in silence. Kakashi continued. And the masked man, he said he would return in 7 years to claim the Nine Tails again. He said no one could stop him, not even the fourth. The third Hokage's expression hardened. We'll have to prepare for that eventuality. And Rin? Kakashi paused. She was taken, pulled into that vortex with the masked man. But I know it was her. She tried to protect me. She knew what was coming. She fought like Rin would have. Hiruzen didn't speak right away. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Then we'll find out, the Hokage said at last, one way or another. Watching from afar, Sakura exhaled slowly. Everything was moving, Kakashi believed. Jiraiya would follow the trail she laid, and the Uchiha, for now, were safe. But Rin needed to be real, and to make her real, Sakura would have to become her in more than mask and name. Sakura's diary day, 2123, year 7, Rin was taken. That was the story, the lie. But it worked. Kakashi saw her, called her name, and now Jiraiya is on the trail. I need him to believe it too, but it can't just be an illusion next time. If Rin is going to live again, she has to feel real. She needs a history, a chakra signature, a body. Gods, if this works, I'll need sacrifices. I'll need time. One day, I'll write about how I got it, but not yet. First, I have to become the ghost they all remember. Chapter 31. Jiraiya's investigation. Jiraiya had been trained by the best, a Sanin forged through years of battle and reconnaissance. But as he made his way toward his next destination, the unease gnawing at his gut didn't feel like something he could easily dismiss. Rin, Kakashi's fallen teammate, suddenly reappearing, under suspicious circumstances, no less, was something he needed to get to the bottom of. The streets of Konoha seemed quieter that day, the weight of the village's concerns pressing down like a thick fog. The Uchiha had momentarily stepped out of the spotlight, but the shadow of the masked man, Yuki Uzumaki, and this newly resurrected Rin lingered heavily in the air. Jiraiya's instincts told him that there was far more to this than met the eye. As he approached a secluded area near the outskirts of the village, he felt a familiar flicker of chakra. She was here, Rin, or at least the person calling herself that. He could sense her just up ahead, and though he had prepared for this conversation, he knew it would be anything but straightforward. Jiraiya's mind raced through the possibilities. If this was truly Rin Nohara, Kakashi's old teammate and a former medical nin of Team Minato, how had she survived? And if it wasn't her, who had the skill to take her face, her voice, and make it real enough to fool even Kakashi? As he rounded the corner, there she stood, still and composed beneath the shadows of an old cypress. Her figure was calm, arms folded across her chest, gaze resting on the treetops. The same mask as before concealed her face, but Jiraiya could feel her watching him even before she turned. Rin Nohara, he called, voice even, or someone who wants me to think you are. The masked woman tilted her head. Jiraiya of the Sanin, I wondered when you'd come. He stopped a few meters away, arms crossed loosely. Word travels fast. You appeared in the Uchiha district, fought alongside Kakashi, then vanished again. I've got a lot of questions." She shrugged lightly. "I figured you would." Jiraiya took a step closer. "Let's start with the obvious. How did you escape the masked man? The same one who, if I recall, was fast enough to go head-to-head with Minato." The woman chuckled softly. "I've escaped him before." "You died before," Jiraiya corrected. His tone wasn't harsh, just matter of fact. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe I did, but maybe death doesn't mean what it used to." That hung in the air for a beat too long. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes, watching her closely. "Are you saying you were brought back, or that you never truly died?" She didn't answer directly. "Does it matter? I'm here now." Jiraiya studied her posture, the cadence of her voice. "You're not with Yuki, and you're not with the masked man either. But you've crossed paths with both, haven't you?" Rin gave a small nod. "Yes." "Then why are you back now? Why return as Rin Nohara and help Kakashi? What do you want from him?" Her voice lowered. "He needed someone to believe in him, and I needed someone who still believed I could matter." That answer hit deeper than Jiraiya expected. He recognized something in her tone. Exhaustion, maybe? Or guilt. He softened slightly. "If this is about Kakashi, you picked a hell of a time to come back. The village is on edge. There are people who want answers fast. If you're not careful, you're going to make yourself a target." "I already am," she said. The silence between them grew heavier. Jiraiya finally exhaled and said, "I don't know if you are Rin, but Kakashi thinks you are, and that means I need to figure it out one way or another." She turned to him fully. "Then follow the trail. I won't stop you, but don't assume you'll like where it leads." And with that, she stepped into the trees, chakra masking her completely. She was gone. Later that day, Kakashi was walking a quiet path near the rooftops when Jiraiya found him. The sun was dipping low, casting long orange shadows across the tiles. "Kakashi," Jiraiya said in a casual tone as he fell into step beside him. "Jiraiya-sensei." There was a beat of silence before Jiraiya spoke again. "I saw her. Rin, or whoever she is." Kakashi stopped walking. "She escaped?" "So she says. Claims she broke free from the masked man on her own." Kakashi's eye narrowed slightly. "That's hard to believe." "Exactly. But there's something else. She said people are trying to fix what was broken." She didn't say it outright, but it sounds personal. Kakashi looked down, his thoughts unreadable. "She's trying to protect something or someone. Maybe you," Jiraiya said, "or maybe herself. But this isn't over. Not even close." Kakashi nodded once. "I know. Sakura's diary, day 2124, year 7. He called me Rin. Over and over. I wasn't ready." Jiraiya's gaze cut through everything, like he was trying to read behind the mask. "I was scared. I shouldn't have been, but I was. Not for my life, for the illusion, for Rin, for what she meant to them. If I break character, I break Kakashi. And if Jiraiya finds the cracks too early, everything I've built unravels. I need more time. Just a little more time. Let them chase her. Let them chase me. I'll make Rin real enough to save them all. Even if it kills me." Chapter 32. The Third Hokage's Inquiry. The soft sound of Sakura's footsteps echoed down the long stone corridor of the Hokage Tower. Her sandals clicked lightly against the polished floors, the only sound in the tense silence. The mid-morning light filtering through the tall windows did little to ease the heaviness settling in her chest. She had been summoned, formally. No scroll, no Anbu escort, just a quiet message delivered by a Chunin, eyes downcast and expression blank. It hadn't said why, but she already knew. Jiraiya was back, and she had pushed too far. As she ascended the final steps toward the Hokage's office, Sakura inhaled deeply, drawing chakra into her lungs to calm her pulse. She had practiced her alibis for years, crafted stories within stories. But now, with the Sanin watching, with Kakashi's doubts rising, with Itachi and the Uchiha spared but not free, everything felt fragile. She adjusted the fall of her sleeves, smoothed the faintest wrinkle from her tunic, and knocked. "Enter," came the voice from within. The door slid open and she stepped inside. The room was exactly as she remembered it, lined with scrolls and aged wood, the smell of ink and tobacco lingering in the air. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat behind his desk, hands folded under his chin, the shadow of his hat falling low over his eyes. But it was the figure to his right that caught her breath. Jiraiya, tall, casual, intense. His arms were crossed, but his eyes were sharp and alert, scanning her like a hawk. He said nothing. Sakura, Hiruzen greeted, his tone carefully neutral. Thank you for coming on such short notice. She bowed smoothly, her voice calm. Of course, Lord Hokage. Do you know why you've been summoned? Sakura met his gaze. Not too direct, not too submissive. I have an idea. Hiruzen's fingers tapped once against his pipe before he spoke again. The village has changed these past few weeks. There are fractures forming that few can see, but I believe you've been walking along them for some time. Sakura said nothing. We've received multiple accounts now of a masked woman appearing during the Uchiha incident. Rin Nohara, a name that should not be alive. She kept her face still, waiting. Jiraiya finally spoke, voice low and smooth. I spoke with her. She said she's been guiding someone since they were 3 years old, teaching them chakra control, sealing, medical techniques. He let the silence hang, let the weight of it settle. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed slightly. Would you like to explain why that sounds suspiciously like your skill set, Sakura? Sakura exhaled softly through her nose. Time to walk the tightrope. Sakura stepped closer to the desk, her hands folded calmly in front of her. I won't deny it, she said, voice even. Rin has been a presence in my life for as long as I can remember, but not in the way you might think. Jiraiya's brow rose slightly. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, giving her the space to speak. She first appeared to me when I was very young, 3, maybe 4 years old. I didn't understand who she was at the time. Just a quiet voice that taught me how to listen to chakra, how to move it. She said she had once been a medic 9, that she saw something in me worth protecting. Sakura glanced between the two men, carefully measuring their expressions. For years, I thought she was just a dream, a figment of chakra training. But she returned, again and again. She taught me control, healing, basic fuinjutsu. It wasn't until I entered the academy that I realized her name mattered. Rin Nohara, Jiraiya murmured. Sakura nodded. That's what she called herself. I knew the name from the records, from stories about Team Minato. Hiruzen's gaze sharpened. And you didn't think to report that someone claiming to be Rin Nohara was appearing to you in secret? Sakura didn't flinch. I didn't know how. What child walks into the Hokage's office and says they're being taught by a ghost? The question hung heavy in the room. She continued, slower now. By the time I understood what it meant, I'd already started training with her in secret. She was never hostile, never gave me reason to doubt her intentions, just mysterious, always guiding, never pushing. But recently she's been acting differently. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. How so? She's tense, distracted, talking about protect people, fixing things. She never says what exactly, but she's been more urgent, more present. Hiruzen leaned forward slightly. Do you believe she's connected to Yuki Uzumaki? Sakura hesitated, just long enough to appear thoughtful. She's never mentioned Yuki directly, but I think she knows of her. She's wary, like there are lines she won't cross. She avoids speaking about the masked man entirely. The room fell into silence again. Jiraiya tapped his finger once against his sleeve. She told me something similar, he said quietly, that there are things in this world that shouldn't have happened, that some of us were brought back because of it. Brought back? Hiruzen echoed, his voice low. She didn't say how, Jiraiya replied, but the implication was clear. He turned back to Sakura. Do you think Rin is alive? I don't know, Sakura answered, and her voice was honest, layered in just enough ambiguity. But I believe she's real. I've trained with her, spoken with her. I've seen her chakra. She's not an illusion. That much, at least, was technically true. Jiraiya studied her for a long moment. You're certain she's not manipulating you? Sakura nodded. I trust her. She's never asked me to betray the village, never spoken against the Hokage. But I think she's preparing me for something bigger. I just don't know what. The words fell like stones in the room, and the two men exchanged one last glance. Hiruzen finally rose from his chair, his shadow stretching long across the polished floor. This is a matter that will not remain hidden for long, he said. We are no longer dealing with whispers in the dark. If Rin Nohara has truly returned, or if someone is using her name, then we must uncover the full truth before the village begins to fracture beneath the weight of unanswered questions. Jiraiya crossed his arms. And if she is the real Rin, then we need to understand why she chose Sakura, why she waited until now. Sakura stayed silent, listening, absorbing every word. The weight of her lies sat heavy on her chest, but she didn't let it show. This was the price she had always known she would pay. Hiruzen turned back to her. Sakura, you are to report any further sightings of Rin. Any contact, dreams, conversations, even feelings. If she reaches out again, you come to us. Immediately. I understand, Sakura replied, her voice steady. Jiraiya nodded. And if you learn anything about her connection to Yuki or the masked man, anything at all, bring it forward. We're not accusing you, Sakura, but this situation is volatile. We can't afford to be blindsided. I will, she said softly. I want to help. I want to protect the village too. The sincerity in her tone was real. She did want to protect Konoha, just not in the way they imagined. Hiruzen gave a slow nod. You may go. Sakura bowed deeply, then turned on her heel and left the room with carefully measured steps. Only when she passed the threshold and felt the sun on her skin did she allow herself to release the breath she'd been holding. Sakura's diary, day 2/1/24, year 7. I think I passed the test. They believe me for now. But it's getting harder. The story has too many threads now. Kakashi believes. Jiraiya suspects. And the Hokage, he's watching everything. I told them Rin trained me since I was 3. I told them she was real. Not exactly a lie. Just not the truth they expect. But the questions are getting sharper, closer, and every answer I give pulls me further into the mask. I don't know how much longer I can keep this going, but I have to. Because they're finally looking at Rin. And no one is looking at me. Chapter 33. Building toward the future. The inquiry with the third Hokage had gone better than Sakura expected, but that didn't mean she felt safe. As she walked through the village under the mid-morning sun, the warmth on her skin couldn't reach the cold weight resting in her chest. The story she had spun for Hiruzen and Jiraiya about Rin's involvement still held, for now, but one slip, one moment of hesitation, and everything could unravel. She moved with quiet purpose, each step practiced and light. The village bustled around her as if untouched by the layers of deception curling beneath its surface. Children laughed on their way to class, merchants shouted offers to passers-by, and shinobi darted across rooftops on missions known only to their superiors. The everyday sounds were a comfort, but only on the surface. Sakura had lived too long behind masks to be soothed by the ordinary. The Uchiha district sat in a quiet corner of Konoha, flanked by tall walls and older architecture. As she entered, she felt the tension that still lingered, lessened since the masked man's appearance, but not forgotten. The rebellion had stalled, redirected by fear and uncertainty. But fear wasn't peace. It was only a pause. She found Itachi waiting for her beneath the old cherry blossom tree. The same tree where she'd once tended to a skinned elbow, where Sasuke once trained in secret, where history rooted itself in silence. He sat cross-legged, his hands resting calmly in his lap, his expression unreadable. Itachi, she said gently, stepping into the shade. He opened his eyes and looked at her, not with suspicion or warmth, but with a sharp clarity that reminded her just how dangerous he was. Even calm, he gave nothing away. You came earlier than expected, he said. Good. We don't have time to waste. Sakura sat beside him, tucking her legs under her. The blossoms rustled above them. The Hokage is willing to listen to your father, she said. If Fugaku agrees to meet without making demands, I can help smooth the way. Itachi nodded faintly. He's agreed to the meeting, but not out of trust, out of calculation. Sakura hesitated. He still thinks the village will turn on you. He's not wrong, Itachi said quietly. The clan's anger has deep roots. The masked man may have shifted attention away from us, but that won't last forever, not unless something more permanent is put in place. There it was again, the masked man. Sakura suppressed the shiver that crawled up her spine. Even now, Itachi didn't know that the man was her illusion, or that she was the one who had redirected Konoha's suspicion with smoke and chakra threads. What do you know about him? She asked carefully, watching his profile. Itachi didn't look at her. Nothing worth trusting, just that his presence was too convenient, too effective. He turned attention away from the clan at the perfect time. That's not coincidence. And you think it was a manipulation? I think, Itachi said, that someone wants the clan quiet for now. Whether that someone is friend or enemy, I don't know. Sakura offered no answer. She couldn't, not without unraveling everything. Instead, she tilted her gaze upward toward the blossoms. "You're right about one thing," she said softly. "It won't last. We need to lay a real foundation, something that makes the village see the Uchiha differently." Itachi didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. "You've been working toward that already, haven't you?" She turned toward him, masking the flicker of panic. "What do you mean?" "You've moved through both sides of this," he said, still calm. "The clan, the Hokage, Jiraiya. Somehow they all listen to you, at least in part. I don't know how or why, but I see the pattern." Sakura's heart pounded once, hard, but she met his gaze without flinching. "I'm just trying to keep people alive," she said honestly. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then we have the same goal." The silence that followed was laced with unspoken truths. After a while, Sakura stood. "I'll speak with the Hokage again before the meeting. He'll want reassurance, something to make it worth the risk. And if he doesn't give it, then I'll make sure someone else does," she said, her voice steady. Itachi's lips curved ever so slightly. "You were always more dangerous than you looked." Sakura didn't smile. "Not dangerous," she said, "just determined." She left him beneath the tree, the petals drifting down like snowfall. The flickering light of late afternoon cast long shadows across the Hokage's office. The warm glow of the sun struggled to reach through the thick tension that filled the room. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood at the window with his hands folded behind his back, the scent of old parchment and faint pipe smoke lingering in the air. Jiraiya remained by the opposite wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp with quiet suspicion. "I don't like it," Hiruzen muttered, his voice gravelly. "This situation with Rin, Yuki, and that masked man is growing more dangerous by the day." "You think they're working together?" Jiraiya asked, brow furrowed. Hiruzen turned slowly. "I'm not sure what to think anymore. Everything feels like misdirection. And yet, somehow, everything circles back to Rin." Jiraiya's gaze narrowed. "That girl I spoke to, the one claiming to be Rin, she knew things. Personal things. She acted like someone trying to protect Kakashi, not manipulate him. But that makes her even harder to classify. She doesn't act like a puppet. She doesn't act like a ghost. She acts like Rin." "And you believe she is?" Hiruzen pressed, his eyes studying Jiraiya closely. "I don't know," Jiraiya admitted. "But whoever she is, she's either a very gifted imposter or something impossible is happening." There was a long pause. Hiruzen's fingers tightened behind his back. "If she's an imposter, she's passed every test we've thrown at her. And if she's not, if Rin Nohara is truly alive again, then someone brought her back. And that," he said with a grim look, "terrifies me more than the alternative." Jiraiya didn't respond at first. Then quietly he asked, "You think someone used one of those techniques?" Hiruzen didn't answer directly. There are few shinobi left alive with the knowledge required, even fewer with the will to use it. Jiraiya's jaw tensed. "Then we keep looking, quietly. If Rin was brought back by unnatural means, the trail won't stay cold forever. Someone always slips up." "And what of Yuki?" Hiruzen asked, moving slowly back to his desk. "She appears, upends the Uchiha rebellion, and vanishes again. Neither Root nor Anbu can get a trace on her." "She's a wild card," Jiraiya replied. "But I don't think she's aligned with Rin. If anything, they're circling the same battlefield from different flanks, sometimes in conflict, sometimes parallel. That doesn't mean they're enemies, but I wouldn't call them allies either." Hiruzen exhaled deeply. "It's too much at once. The Uchiha's unrest, the masked man's threats, now the ghosts of the past walking our streets again." Jiraiya stepped forward slightly, his voice lowering. "And Sakura?" Hiruzen's brow furrowed. "We still don't know what role she truly plays in this," Jiraiya continued. "She's gifted, too gifted in ways that don't add up. I don't think she's deceiving us maliciously, but I don't think she's telling us everything either. She claims Rin has trained her since childhood, which is either an elaborate fantasy," Jiraiya said, "or the foundation of something we haven't begun to understand." Silence hung heavy for a long moment before Hiruzen finally spoke. "Keep your eyes on them all. Rin, Sakura, Yuki. If we miss a piece of this puzzle, it could cost the village dearly." Jiraiya nodded once. "I'll dig deeper," quietly. As the old Hokage returned to his desk, the two men said no more. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves of the great tree above the tower, whispers of a future still being written. The atmosphere in the Uchiha compound was quiet, but tense. It was a silence laced with the echo of unspoken fears and old resentments. Though no swords had been drawn, the air still felt like a battlefield. Inside the compound's main hall, Fugaku Uchiha stood before the ancestral shrine, hands clasped behind his back, his posture as rigid as ever. He did not turn when Itachi entered the room. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You've spoken with the Hokage?" Fugaku finally said, his voice low but firm. "Yes," Itachi answered, "and with the elders. They've agreed to a formal meeting with you. No tricks, no observers, just dialogue." Fugaku turned then, slowly, his sharp eyes settling on his son. "Dialogue," he repeated. "We've tried that before. It led nowhere." "This time may be different," Itachi replied calmly. "The village is shifting. Their focus is no longer on us. They're worried about threats beyond the walls, about figures even they don't understand." Fugaku's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "The masked man," Itachi continued, careful not to say too much, "changed the game. The Hokage knows now that the Uchiha weren't behind the Nine Tails' attack. That alone reopens a door we thought had been closed." "Reopens?" Fugaku scoffed quietly. "Or distracts? We are useful again, that is all." Itachi didn't disagree, but he pressed forward. "Then let's use that. If the village wants peace now, we can leverage it, on our terms, without blood." Fugaku studied his son. "And you truly believe the Hokage would allow that? That he would give us a seat without stripping our power first?" "He respects strength," Itachi replied. "And what's more, he fears civil war. We have influence, father. Let's wield it before others do." There was a beat of silence. Then Fugaku turned back to the shrine, his voice lower now as if confessing something to the past. "Your grandfather warned me this day would come," he said. "When the village would turn against us, when the only path forward would be soaked in either submission or blood. I never imagined you'd be the one urging peace." Itachi stepped closer. "Because I've seen the alternative, and I refuse to let Sasuke grow up in a world that demands we burn just to be heard." Fugaku's expression remained unreadable, but the weight in his shoulders shifted slightly, less rigid, more contemplative. After a long silence, he spoke again. "Very well, I will meet with the Hokage and the council, but I will not beg. If they want unity, they will need to offer more than platitudes." Itachi bowed his head. "Understood." As he turned to leave, his father's voice followed him. "Itachi," Fugaku said, "I don't know what role you truly play in all this, but I hope, for all our sakes, that you're right." Itachi paused at the door, the shadow of the shrine casting a long line across his face. "So do I." Sakura's diary, day 2125, year 8. I told them what they needed to hear. I spun the web just wide enough for the Hokage and Jiraiya to catch themselves in it. But it's fraying. Jiraiya's too sharp. Hiruzen's starting to see past the mask. I keep wondering when the line I'm walking turns from thread to wire. I'm not just pretending anymore. I'm Rin to them. I'm Yuki to the rumors. I'm Sakura only when I'm alone, and those moments are starting to slip through my fingers. But the Uchiha are still breathing. Sasuke's still smiling, so I'll wear every mask I need to, until I can finally take them all off. The moon hung low over Konoha's rooftops, casting silver light across tiled eaves and quiet streets. Sakura stood at her small desk, scrolls unfurled, ink still drying on her most recent diagrams. Seal matrices overlapped with chakra flow charts. Complex designs meant to keep her hidden, meant to buy more time. But even the ink felt heavy tonight. She rolled the parchment tightly and sealed it in a protective case before turning to the mirror across the room. The reflection that stared back didn't wear a mask, but it didn't feel like her either. Gone was the girl who had once dreamed of acing her way through the academy and making her parents proud. What stared back was someone forged by necessity, shaped by memory, knowledge, and a desperate refusal to let history repeat itself. She reached into the chest at the foot of her bed and retrieved a long piece of cloth, the mask. She didn't put it on. Not yet. But she held it in her lap like a talisman, something sacred and damning all at once. She had been quiet since the Hokage's inquiry, lying low, letting the illusion settle into place. The story she told, about Rin guiding her since she was a child, had taken root, and now the village was feeding itself with speculation and half-truths. Good. That made it easier to redirect. But Jiraiya, he wasn't convinced. Not entirely. He hadn't called her out, hadn't accused her of anything. But his silence during her last meeting with the Hokage had spoken louder than words. He would keep digging. Sakura's gaze hardened. She would need to stay one step ahead. The Rin illusion had to evolve, had to feel real even under scrutiny. Her chakra, her speech, her memories. She could forge it all if she had enough time. And she had to make sure the Uchiha clan made it through the next stage intact. The rebellion had quieted, but the embers were still alive beneath the ash. She'd seen them, burning in the eyes of elders who still whispered of betrayal, in the wary glances thrown between patrols near the compound. Itachi was holding the line, but barely. The meeting with the council would decide everything. She would speak with Hiruzen again before that day came. Shape the tone of the conversation before Fugaku ever stepped through the doors of the council chambers. A few well-placed observations, a soft nudge from the Hokage in the right direction. That was all they needed. Sakura stood, setting the mask aside, and walked out into the night. There was no room for hesitation now. Sakura's diary, day 2125, year 8. The lies are thicker than ever, and now they're starting to grow roots. Jiraiya is digging. The Hokage is watching. Kakashi still believes, but doubt creeps in through the cracks. I keep telling myself that it's worth it, that this fragile peace we've built is something real. But every time I wear the mask, I feel myself drifting further from who I used to be. The Uchiha are stable, for now. The rebellion is quiet. But peace built on illusions is brittle. And the masked man isn't the only ghost waiting in the dark. I have to hold this together a little longer. Just long enough for Sasuke to grow. Just long enough for the next move. The wind rustled through the trees outside the Uchiha district as Sakura made her way home, her steps heavy from the weight of the day's meetings. Itachi's words echoed in her mind. About his father, about Sasuke, about their fragile alliance with the village. She had bought them time, but not safety. As she passed the edge of the compound, she caught a glimpse of Sasuke training alone. He wasn't throwing kunai or practicing fire jutsu. Instead, he sat still, meditating beneath the trees the way Itachi sometimes did. He was only 8, and yet the world was already pressing in on him. She stopped, watching silently for a moment. Sasuke had changed since the near massacre. He didn't know the details, only that something bad had nearly happened. But children could sense things. He was growing quieter, more focused. His chakra had begun to sharpen in subtle ways. He opened his eyes and noticed her. "Sakura?" he asked, blinking. She smiled and stepped closer, just passing through. Sasuke gave a small nod, then looked away again. "You're getting stronger," she said, kneeling beside him. "I want to be," he replied, his voice quiet but steady. "I want to be like Itachi." Sakura's heart clenched. Then listen to him. Learn from him. But don't forget to live, too. He didn't answer, but he didn't argue either. Later that night, back in her room, Sakura unrolled a scroll and examined a series of seals she had been working on. They weren't meant for attack. These were protective, layered chakra suppression matrices, cloaking arrays, and memory dampeners. Her work had shifted from deception to preservation. The village wasn't just suspicious, it was curious. And curiosity was dangerous. Jiraiya's investigation would bring others into the picture. She needed to stay ahead. She reached for her brush and began drafting a new plan, one that would account for the possibility of exposure, of the Hokage demanding answers she couldn't give. And at the center of it all, Rin. Rin had to remain a mystery, not a lie, not a myth, but something elusive enough that even Jiraiya would hesitate to pull at the thread. Sakura leaned back, exhaustion creeping in. She had survived another season of shadows, but the winter was coming. Chapter 33.5, Before the Storm, Sakura's Diary, Day 2555, Year 9. Sometimes I wonder if I'm walking forward or simply circling the same path, only carving deeper grooves as I go. Year 9 has arrived. The village is quieter on the surface, but that stillness feels like a calm before something I can't name. Everyone thinks the most dangerous years are the early ones. That's a lie. Danger doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it waits. The classroom had settled into its usual rhythm, chalk tapping against the board, the low murmur of Iruka's voice, and Naruto's soft snoring one row over. Sakura sat near the window, hand balanced under her chin, pretending to take notes. Her eyes weren't on the lecture. They were watching chakra. Outside the academy building, a pair of Anbu operatives crouched in shadow atop the roofline. Not Root, not yet. These were Hokage loyal agents, marked by the faint signatures of their masks and the predictable pulses of chakra control. They didn't know she could feel them. Her eyes flicked back to the classroom. Hinata was doodling in the corner of her scroll. Sasuke was watching Iruka without blinking, posture perfect, mind sharper than anyone gave him credit for. Naruto, well, Naruto drooled a little more dramatically than usual. She allowed a small smile. Iruka finished his sentence with a flourish. And that's why chakra molding at this stage should remain within the basic elemental alignments. You'll master these before attempting anything advanced. Any questions? Sakura didn't raise her hand. She could already manipulate chakra in patterns these students wouldn't understand for another 4 years. But showing that now would only stir the waters too soon. Later, as the bell rang and the classroom emptied, she lingered behind. Not because she had more to learn, but because she'd begun observing the way people moved when they thought no one was looking. That was when she saw it. Sasuke. He stood at the door, back turned but not moving, watching the hallway as Naruto bounded ahead. Then he glanced back, just once, at her. It was a flicker, a brief moment of uncertainty in his otherwise unrateable face. Then he left. That evening, Sakura stood barefoot on a rooftop under the stars, chakra thrumming quietly at her fingertips. Her hair blew softly in the wind, tied in a braid that had come loose during training. Below, the street lamps glowed with the quiet hum of Konoha's domestic peace. But she could feel the undercurrent, the tension, the slow tightening of something just beyond reach. She traced a seal onto a scroll in front of her, then watched it light up faintly under her palm. A reactive chakra lock, keyed to her frequency. A technique she devised to protect a certain set of scrolls no one knew she was writing. The real diary, the one that would never sit beside her bed. Sakura's diary, day 2570, year 9. Naruto is learning faster. His control is still poor, but his determination pushes him further than I expected. Sasuke, I can't read him lately. He's trying to stay unnoticed, which only makes him more noticeable. As for me, I've been working on containment seals, not because I need to seal enemies, because I might need to seal memories, or truths, for someone else, or for myself. The more I interfere, the more the balance shifts, so I'll stay in the margins. Let the world read one version of the page, while I write another beneath it in invisible ink. Sakura's diary, day 2902, year 10. People think the dangerous moments are loud, the clash of jutsu, the roar of enemies, the fire and fury of war. But the most dangerous things happen in silence. This year, everything is too quiet, too still, like the whole village is holding its breath. The academy yard was filled with the usual noise, shouts, kunai practice, Iruka calling instructions. But beneath it all, Sakura could feel the low hum of chakra monitoring her from the rooftops, familiar Anbu patrols, and Root. Always Root, just far enough to remain plausible deniability. She didn't flinch under the surveillance anymore. That would only draw attention. After all, they knew about Rin now. The Hokage had accepted her story, that Rin had returned in secret, that she was guiding Sakura, teaching her, preparing her. Hiruzen had even told her to continue training under Rin's supervision, though he'd been careful to word it as an observation, a watchful tolerance. Kakashi, on the other hand, was quiet but deeply unsettled. Sakura could feel his chakra sometimes during her academy hours. Hidden, still, focused on her like a blade pressed to a nerve. He hadn't spoken to her since the last time he'd seen Rin. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. That evening, Sakura stood alone at the back of her house, the training courtyard bathed in orange light. She wasn't training physically. Tonight was seal work. Silent, precise, delicate. The scroll in front of her was covered in concentric rings of script, chakra encoding layers that looped back into themselves. It was experimental Fuinjutsu, the kind she had been working on to refine unstable jutsu for the next generation. But Sakura knew what it was really for. Control, memory preservation, emotional suppression, command delay, not for weapons, for people, for the masks. She exhaled slowly and inked another loop into place. Across the rooftops, Kakashi watched from a hidden perch. He crouched low, one hand wrapped loosely around his Anbu blade handle, though he made no move to draw it. Still at it, he murmured to himself. Her movements were efficient, familiar, too familiar. The next day, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat at his desk reading the latest reports from academy instructors. He paused at one name, Haruno Sakura, top marks in ceiling theory, exceptional chakra control, reserved demeanor, no signs of instability, still claims to train with Rin. The old man tapped his pipe gently against the ashtray and muttered, "Sometimes peace is the real illusion." Sakura's diary, day 2914, year 10. They all know the Hokage tolerates her. Kakashi can't look her in the eye. And Jiraiya, he keeps his distance. He doesn't want to say it, but I can feel it. He's afraid of what Rin might become. But none of them understand the truth. Rin isn't becoming anything. She's Sakura's diary, day 32261, year 11. Some truths aren't meant to be used. They're meant to be studied, rewritten, broken apart and rebuilt into something else, and sealed away until the world forgets they ever existed. The night was still and starless as Sakura slipped through the Hokage Annex's outer defense seal. She moved like a shadow. This wasn't the main vault, not the sealed scroll of seals chamber again. This was an auxiliary archive, quiet, older, and overlooked by most. But the jutsu fragments stored here weren't safer. They were simply less complete. She bypassed the locking mechanism with a slow, rhythmic pulse of chakra, not forcing her way in, but syncing with the faded harmonic frequency of the warding tags. Click, slide, in. The room smelled of paper, ink, and oil. Lanterns had long since burned out. Scrolls lined the walls in rows marked unstable, untested, deprecated. And it was there, among the neglected edges of history, that she found it. A scroll bound with triple compression rings. Old chakra residue clung to its seal like static. She didn't unroll much, just enough. Enough to see, enough to understand, but not to learn it. Not directly. Her hands moved with precision as she copied a symbolic sequence onto her own parchment. Not word for word, not line for line. She altered, adjusted, simplified. It wasn't theft, it was repurposing. She was careful not to preserve any full invocation phrases. This wasn't for use, not yet, not even soon. It was a seed. Back in her hidden workshop, beneath a false floor panel under her bedroom, Rin sat cross-legged, sleeves pushed back as she etched seals onto a new scroll. Her hair was tied up, the loose strands held in place by a bone-white pen carved from an old practice kunai. The design she inscribed was new, complex, not a weapon, not a summon, a filter, a containment shell that might one day serve a different purpose. She held no illusions that it would work soon or safely, but one day it might matter for Rin. Sakura's diary, day 3262, year 11. It's just a foundation, not even a real jutsu yet. Just fragments translated through my own hand, run through fuinjutsu, filtered again. Whatever it once was, it doesn't matter. I'm not building it for power. I'm building it for protection. For a version of Rin I might not be able to hold on to forever. Last night I made a mistake. I stayed too long, just a few seconds, just enough to lose track of the second watch shift on patrol. I felt him before I saw him, his chakra cold and sharp like steel drawn in silence. Kakashi didn't move, but I knew he was there, watching from above the opposite roofline as I stepped back into the shadows. I made sure he didn't see my hands, or the scroll, or the glow of the half-sealed ink still fresh on my fingers. But I could feel his suspicion burn against my back as I left. And worse, his grief. That look he wears whenever he sees me, like he's hoping I'm someone I'm not, or maybe fearing that I am. Sakura's diary, day 345, year 11. Time moves differently now, not in minutes or hours, but in gaps, in sideways glances, in the silence between words no one dares to say. I've kept the mask on for so long, I'm not sure which face I'm hiding anymore. The final months of academy life were oddly subdued. There were no announcements yet, no confirmed graduation dates, but everyone felt it coming. The shift, the tension, the way the instructors had stopped correcting mistakes and started observing reactions. Naruto had grown quieter in class, though he was louder on the field. He was stronger now, more confident. He still failed to mold chakra correctly sometimes, but there was control where there once was chaos. Even Iruka seemed surprised. Sasuke was sharpening. He didn't talk much anymore. He arrived early, left late, stayed behind for extra sparring with instructors who couldn't keep up. His movements were no longer just precise, they were aggressive, intentional. When Sakura watched him from across the courtyard, she saw more than talent. She saw urgency. He was preparing for something he couldn't name, something she already knew was coming. That evening, Rin returned, not as a mask, but as a presence, cloaked in the geisha silhouette, but stripped of all illusion. Sakura sat alone in her hidden workspace, a fresh ceiling scroll stretched out before her. Candles flickered low, casting narrow shadows across the ink. She wasn't drawing anything tonight. She was erasing old designs, half-formed triggers, conceptual fragments from the technique she copied months ago. They wouldn't work. Not yet. Maybe never. But she couldn't afford to leave them behind. They were too close to something real. As she sealed the scroll and locked it away in a hollowed-out beam under the floorboards, her fingers lingered just a moment too long. She wasn't ready to give up on it, but she wasn't ready to use it either. Elsewhere, Iruka sat in the teacher's lounge flipping through performance charts. He paused at 3 names: Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto. He blinked at the page, rubbing his temple. This is going to be interesting. And above the rooftops, Kakashi leaned against a wooden pillar, eye fixed on the dimly lit streets below. He wasn't watching for crime. He was watching for movement. He no longer pretended he didn't see her. He just didn't know what to do about it. Sakura's diary, day 3449, year 11. The scroll is buried. The seal is in place. It isn't finished, but it's quiet now, asleep. If I ever need it, really need it, I'll know where to find it. And if I never do, that's even better. Sakura's diary, day 3473, year 11. I've watched the leaves fall 1,000 times. I've memorized the patterns in the dirt beneath my feet. I've heard every whisper the wind carries through the stone. And yet, this is the first time he's spoken to me. The stone was cold beneath her fingers. The morning was still, the kind of stillness that didn't feel peaceful, but hollow. Mist clung to the ground like breath that hadn't yet faded, curling around the names etched into the memorial as if mourning them still. Rin came here often. She never told anyone that, not even in her diary. It was the one ritual that felt honest, even inside all the lies. She didn't come to be seen. She came because these were the names that mattered. Not for politics, not for bloodline, but for memory, for truth. Today she wasn't alone. She sensed him before he spoke. Kakashi's chakra was unmistakable, coiled like a sealed blade, calm on the outside but honed by grief. You come here more often than anyone I've ever known, Kakashi said behind her, his voice tired. Almost every day. She didn't turn. Do you blame me? No, he said. I just don't know who you come for. A pause. Is it him? He added, quieter. Obito? Her fingers tightened just slightly against the stone. She could lie. She should lie. But she didn't. I come for all of them, she said softly. But you always stop here. His name, every time. Kakashi stepped beside her now, the both of them staring at the black surface that bore so many dead. I see you, you know, he murmured. Even when you don't see me, you trace his name with your thumb. Always his. He left a scar, she said finally, on both of us. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I mean, she whispered, you carry his memory like a wound you don't want to heal, and I carry what he could have been. Kakashi stared at her, uncertain. You say that like he became something else. Rin didn't look at him. He was never meant to die in that cave. The silence was instant and deafening. Kakashi didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was barely a breath. You think he's alive? I think, she said slowly, that the dead don't always stay buried. Not in this world. He turned toward her, confusion flickering beneath the weight of old pain. You're not making sense. No, she said, finally looking at him. I'm not. Her gaze dropped. And maybe I never will. She stepped forward and brushed her fingers gently over another name. Not Obito's this time. Minato Namikaze. I come for him, she said. Not for the fourth Hokage, not the hero, but for our teacher, for the man who cared about us, who died protecting this village. She hesitated, and who never knew what he was really protecting us from. Kakashi's breath caught in his throat. Rin, he began, but she was already walking away, not vanishing in smoke, not flaring with chakra, just walking, slow and real as the mist swallowed her figure one step at a time. Sakura's diary, day 3475, year 11. He asked about Obito today. I gave him just enough to hurt, but not enough to heal. Because if he knew, if he understood even a fraction of what I'm trying to stop, he'd never forgive me. Maybe one day he will, but not today. Today I let Rin carry the weight a little longer. She's still the one he sees when he looks at me. Tomorrow the academy ends. Team assignments begin. After that, there won't be time. No room for hesitation. No space for secrets. No margin for mistakes. So I'll leave this version of myself behind, just for now. Pressed between the pages like dried petals in a forgotten book. Rin, she's stronger than I am. At least, she has to be. Kakashi stood on the edge of the memorial clearing long after she had gone. The mist had lifted. The names were sharp again in the stone, etched in finality, unmoving, unquestionable. Obito, Rin, Minato. Only one of them was supposed to be alive, and yet he was never meant to die in that cave. The words clung to him like dew. Not accusation, not grief, certainty. Rin had said it like a fact, but Rin was dead. He'd buried her himself. He remembered the weight of her body, the blood on his hands, the echo of her name in his throat. And yet the woman who had spoken to him this morning, she felt like her. She moved like her. She remembered things only Rin would know. But she also remembered things Rin couldn't, shouldn't. He thought of her eyes, not wide with innocence like they'd once been, but shadowed, heavy, knowing. And the way her hand had lingered over Minato's name. Who never knew what he was really protecting us from? That chilled him more than the air. What didn't Minato know? And why did she? Kakashi sat on the roof of his apartment hours later, tea forgotten and growing cold beside him. The village below was quiet, peaceful. But peace was a fragile thing. And this version of Rin, she didn't bring peace. She brought questions. He hadn't said it aloud. Not yet. But deep inside, Kakashi was starting to wonder if Obito was still alive. Not the Obito he remembered. Not the boy who joked and lost his temper and threw himself into danger with a grin. No, something else. Something Rin knew and wasn't telling him. And if Obito was alive, what had he become? That's the end of it for now. I can't wait to show you what's next. Hope you enjoyed. Riow out.